No, I cannot believe that, but I don't know the information. You know, I just came out of the car, so I don't have any facts. But I'm definitely surprised with that. You know, especially with all what I've done for him in the past.
Trouble in paradise for Red Bull? Although the team destroyed their competition in a dominant manner, Sergio Perez isn't happy with how he's been treated recently by the Austrian team, more precisely by his teammate Max Verstappen. After everything he's done for the Dutchman in the previous 2 seasons, Perez was humiliated by Verstappen in Brazil, and the team has clearly shown yet again who is the #1 choice in the team and what will happen if he doesn't obey the rules. To make matters worse for Perez, Red Bull made a move that makes the Mexican wonder if he'll go on another rant against Verstappen like he did after Brazil. Now, Perez signed a contract with Red Bull at the beginning of 2021, and rest assured that he was the most competitive individual that raced against Verstappen in the same machinery recently. Nonetheless, the team doesn't want to bother Verstappen by allowing him to compete from within, as was the case in Mercedes back in 2016, and Perez has quickly degraded into the #2 driver, building himself a case similar to Bottas in Mercedes. Nevertheless, Perez has almost helped the team achieve something they didn't achieve back in their glory days with Vettel and Webber, and that's a finish 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. While many thought that Verstappen would help the Mexican in the last 2 races, the Dutchman has stripped 2 points away from Perez and was so decisive that he couldn't hold another driver in order for Perez to pass him and grab the P2 spot in the championship. Verstappen discussed his latest blunder in Abu Dhabi, in which he didn't deliberately slow down in order to hold up Leclerc, and when talking about this situation, the Dutchman added, "That's quite a tricky call to make. You also don't want to end up, of course you can possibly block, but I mean, is that fair racing? I think it's not the nicest way going out of the season like that." It looked like Checo was catching him enough to try and actually get a move, but then he lost quite a bit of time with that bit of a fuss between Pierre and Alex. He lost quite a bit of time with that because I was watching that on the screens. Obviously, this is a narrative that prevails among the Red Bull supporters as well, such as David Coulthard, but we'll get to that later in this video. What isn't looking good for Perez is the fact that he's being pushed by the team's decisions. More precisely, he doesn't have an equal say in the statement as Verstappen. Now, before we move on, we wanted to tell you about the amazing deal the official F1 store is doing right now. Holiday season is here, and they're doing daily discounts on all orders, so check out the first link down in the description to get yourself this juicy discount. Now, the Mexican has spoken loudly about the relationship with Verstappen, and although many thought that the team would condemn the behavior of the 2-time world champion, they did one thing that could mean that Perez could be out of F1 sooner rather than later. After Abu Dhabi, Red Bull signed Daniel Ricciardo as the 3rd driver, or the reserve driver, for Red Bull in 2023. While many think that this is just for the sake of the old glory days, this is far from it. Verstappen has been reported to be angry with Perez and his behavior, seemingly because the Mexican forgot who is the #1 in the team. Remember that earlier in the season, more precisely after Monaco, when Perez won the race and had his contract with Red Bull renewed, the difference between those two was just 15 points in favour of Verstappen. And Perez was much more competitive as well. Now, not only is Perez not competitive with Verstappen, but he's been constantly slower than Ferrari and Mercedes in the second half of the season, which couldn't be a good thing for his future with Red Bull. And with his behaviour and feelings towards Verstappen after the last 2 races, Perez could very well be replaced by Ricciardo in the middle of 2023. Ricciardo doesn't have many choices as of now, and he would be more than delighted to play second fiddle to Max. As a reserve driver, there's only so much you can do, and Ricciardo does hope to return to a top performing team, which as of now suits Red Bull perfectly. With Perez's actions towards Verstappen, claiming that he wouldn't be a 2-time world champion if it weren't for me, the Mexican's future with the team is very uncertain. Perez didn't deserve to be treated this way by any means, but the harsh reality stands as it is, and it stands like this. Verstappen is the #1 driver in the team, and everyone else should obey the rules set by him and the team. That was the case with Bottas and Hamilton between 2017 and 2021, and that's slowly but surely turning out to be the case between Verstappen and Perez. If there is one driver who could fill the role of a perfect wingman for Verstappen and not cause any trouble in the following years, that has to be Daniel Ricciardo. If he doesn't join a top performing team, the Australian's career is likely over, with his only options being to join a midfield or backfield team and fight for scrap points. Ricciardo in a Red Bull would be the ideal support for Verstappen and his reign to more titles, something that would benefit the team more than anything else. Plus, Verstappen and Ricciardo are very close friends off the track, meaning that it's very unlikely that they'll have trouble in paradise. According to Damon Hill, an F1 world champion from 1996, it's very unclear as to whether Perez will continue with his contract with Red Bull and potentially play the role of a perfect wingman. As he added, "It could be quite an interesting one if you think about the problems they have apparently had between Max and Sergio. Let's say the toys go out of the pram and there is some sort of fallout there. Daniel Ricciardo could be in prime position. It's his home and he does owe a lot to Red Bull, so he'll be very keen to be back in that fold. What is it about the prodigal son who returns? He could be in a good position coming back and having learned a lot in other places. It can be that you can improve having been somewhere else than returning to the place you started." This narrative was also shared by Ralf Schumacher, who added that Perez's seat in F1 is all but guaranteed. But on the other side of things, Red Bull does need to be very careful because Perez did win 2 races for them this season and completed multiple 1-2 finishes for the team, meaning that they can always count on him when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. Remember the race in Silverstone where Perez finished P2 after being P17 at one point. Still, Perez's opportunities in Red Bull are very limited, and there's only so much he can do without provoking Verstappen and challenging his position in the team. Obviously, Verstappen is a much faster driver, and we've seen that the upgrades have suited him more, whether that's been made deliberate by the team or not. Either way, the team has let Perez know that there is another sheriff in town, and if it hadn't been for them, his career would probably be over after his first career win in 2020 in the last race of the season. This is something that David Coulthard also believes, adding, "It was an open conversation, there's nothing to be interpreted. The team made a request and the driver denied it. The answer was there before, and someone has been knocking again to try to get a different answer. Being consistent in your behavior patterns is a quality. Inconsistency is what you need to watch out for because you don't know what you're dealing with." Checo was out of Formula 1 with no one knocking on his door. Red Bull gave him the opportunity to come back and a car that's nailed on to win races. He's had a fair crack of the whip to try and beat Max, and he's consistently not delivered on the same level. He has occasionally done so, and I admire the victories he's had. With that being said, obviously Perez has been on the receiving end of things, and the future isn't really bright for the Mexican. Although he has the support of his fans and the media, the shots that are being called for his future aren't in his favour. The team has publicly prioritised Verstappen, which is understandable given the type of season Verstappen had in 2022 and 2021, and the last thing they want is a situation similar to that in Mercedes in 2016. So, what do you think about Perez's chances of staying at Red Bull? Do you believe he'll be replaced by Ricciardo in the first opportunity presented to the Austrian team? Let us know in the comments below.